Hello and welcome to the IRN-CRU podcast, a podcast made in Scotland by NFL lovers. This is the Week 18 review crew. Sadly, the end of the NFL season is upon us for most teams. We're now on to playoff time, and I'm joined by two of the finest crew members that I could have asked for, and two guys whose teams are destined for the playoffs. Unlike myself, where I've got the week one bye, these guys' teams need to suffer through the wildcard weekend. So I'm joined first by our resident cheesehead, Liam. Liam, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you, yes. I think like every second person in Scotland at the moment, I've got a wee bit of cold going on, so I'll apologise in advance for any sniffling or coughing in the background, but I'll keep it to a minimum if I can.
No worries, mate, no worries. Well, hopefully you're feeling better soon, and if you're going to die, at least try and make it quiet so you don't disturb me.
No problem.
The other member of the IRN-CRU that's joined us from the Ravens flock, we've got Mikey. How are you doing, Mikey?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back. It feels like I've had many failings and not been able to get on, so I'm happy to be back in time for this.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I think that's the first. If it's not the first time I've been on with you, Mikey, I think it's certainly been a while since we've been on together.
Don't let Chiefs and Ravens fans go together often.
I know, they're trying to keep us apart. They'll probably save that for, well, we'll both be hoping for maybe championship weekend anyway, but we'll see how the wild card and divisionals go first. So, just very briefly, guys, then before we start, I'm going to come to you both. Obviously, you've got wild card weekend. We'll have a review crew as well. So, just very briefly, Liam, how excited are you for this weekend? Are you nervous about the weekend? What's kind of briefly going on with you?
It's been a strange end to the season for us, I think. With not like last year, we had a lot of momentum, shall we say? So a bit looking forward to it, but a wee bit pessimistic, shall we say? We'll see how it goes. Still looking forward to it, though. You can't really beat having playoff football, so can't really complain really.
No, definitely. Again, obviously we've touched before. You've got one of the youngest receiving calls in the league, and to go kind of back-to-back playoffs with those guys is only going to benefit them in the future. Obviously missing Christian Watson now, who tore his ACL in the final week of the season. But as you say, it's good to have playoff football. But again, your guys are no strangers to kind of going on the road. You went to Dallas last year and kind of gave them a scene too, so there's every chance you can do it to another.
I'll take that again. I'll take that again. No problem at all. So
he's could maybe be rulers of the East again this year. So see how it goes, mate. Mikey, for yourself, a familiar foe coming in. You've seen them already twice this year. It's 1-1 in the regular season. You've got Pittsburgh coming to yourselves. How you feeling about
that? I'm quite happy that it is Pittsburgh. There was quite a few fans that were a bit like, who we got to get, Chargers and that, but there's a little bit of an underlying kind of Lamar with Pittsburgh going in the Ravens of late and all that. And really the first game where they beat us, if Tucker had found his kicking boots and all that, we probably would have won it. So we righted the wrong when we played them on that Saturday night before Christmas. So having it at home, it's only the second time Lamar's played in a full crowd against Pittsburgh, so it should be a good night. I'm not looking forward to the tiredness on Sunday, but you'd rather be here and watching football with your teams in January than not. So you take it, a wild card. We'll see how it goes.
If you're going to go, you might as well take the hard road. It wouldn't be anything less Scottish than taking the hard road, to be honest.
Our two wins before were exactly that way. So it's one of those sort of ways. When we had the home playoff advantage last year, look how it ended. It was good, but it wasn't good enough, as you say.
Yeah. No, definitely, mate, definitely. So obviously the review crew will touch on the games in a bit more detail as well. So I'm not wanting to step on those guys' toes for this week. So we're here to do a review of Week 18. week 18 is always a kind of last week of the regular season is always a kind of hard one. You've got teams have sewn up the buys and teams with nothing to play for, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to rattle through the scores. We won't kind of touch on every game. We'll touch on a couple of games that have had some meaning to them, essentially. So this weekend we had, obviously, my Kansas City Chiefs got absolutely the Chiefs Stringers got hosed off of the Denver Broncos 38-0. Had to get that in there, to be honest. But again, we obviously rested our players, which kind of takes me. The reason I've done that first is because it takes me back to Saturday, where the Bengals saw off the Steelers in 1917, and I know a lot of Bengals fans weren't happy the fact that we were resting our players because apparently we were scared of them. But Bengals are home for another year. We had the Commanders, they saw off the Cowboys 23-19. I'll say this one quickly, Liam. The Bears beat the Packers 24-22 with a last-minute Santos field goal.
We'll forget about that game.
Yeah, bypass it. I've done that just so as we don't need to talk about our teams getting beat. The Texans, they made sure the Titans had the number one pick in the draft. Is that right? The Titans are number one pick. 23-14. Jaguars lost to the Colts 26-23 for the Colts in that one. The Patriots done themselves out the number one pick by winning 23-16. Just briefly on that one, did you see some of the plays for Joe Milton the third?
He was slinging it about, wasn't he? So,
He certainly was. I seen his rushing touchdown as well. He's standing back somersault to celebrate. It was quite impressive for a guy that size. But I've seen a few things of people saying that Joe Milton the third is what Anthony Richardson should be from a Colts perspective, which did make me chuckle. The Eagles minus Saquon Barkley won 20-13 against the Giants. Chargers saw off the Raiders 34-20. Seahawks finished strong with a 30-25 win over the Rams, making sure the Rams finished as the fourth seed and now have to host the Vikings. The Dolphins couldn't do their part to keep themselves in playoff contention. They lost 32-20. And the Cardinals saw off the 49ers 47-24. So that was kind of most of the games that really didn't have much meaning, to be honest, guys. So let's go into the games that had a bit of something to play for. Starting off on Saturday night for ourselves, the late Saturday night window, Mikey, we had your Ravens absolutely destroying the Bailey Zappi-led Browns 35-10. I did watch this game. Obviously, Saturday night suits us a lot better over here because it means you're not working on the Monday, so staying up late on the Saturday night isn't as much a chore. For me, though, my only concern was, as I'm watching it, is the game was well in hand early doors. Starters were in for a long time. Zay Flowers picked up an injury. But my overriding memory for this game was that big man interception. Was it Pierce? I love
Michael Pierce.
He thought about running and then just went, nah, I'm done. I'm going down 6-7 yards and I am done.
It was on the slide, wasn't
it? There's quite a lot of stuff on the socials and on NFL and all that. Like, apparently the clip they put up was one of the most viewed clips this year, like millions in the couple of days. But he was basically afterwards said, I've seen all the memes, I've seen all the stories about big guys fumbling. He's like, we are coached, get down, get out of here. So it was, but you love to see guys like that. Now, doing that in the first thing is amazing, but you've got to ask yourself, why are two guys at over 300 pounds dropping into coverage?
Yeah.
For that against any QB, you'd be like, what's going on here? It was unbelievable. But yeah, it was memorable. It was against the Browns, so it's always good to win. Obviously, it's probably a bit like Liam, having one of your wide receivers go down is concerning. Zay's hopefully not as bad, but I don't think he's got to make this week. So it's kind of a little bit. He's had a great week with getting his Pro Bowl and all that. He was playing so well, but the only saving grace I've got with it is that Rashad Bateman and Andrews have been on fire this year as well. So it's it's still a bit of a pick your poison, although you don't have that kind of wide receiver one threat with Zay.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I seen the interview from Michael Pearce after it where he just said the bus was out of gas. He's like, that was done. Which I thought was an absolutely hilarious line on it. But it's just, sorry, Michael, you go, mate.
All I was all to say, it's just that's the team are clicking just now, and they're on a good run since their bye that they had. They've won and won pretty convincingly, and they've got a lot of good pieces clicking. And even since week 10, when everybody said the Ravens' defense was washed, I mean, they had 2 picks at the weekend. They were making splash tackles everywhere. It's looked pretty good against actual good teams, which is for a team that had the number one strength of schedule this year to go on that. And I predicted 12-5 in the preview crew at the first of the season, so I was right on the money. So yeah.
Nah, good stuff, man. And Chris Doricky on Instagram's actually just said that Michael Pearce he had more receptions than George Pickens on Saturday, which was very true, and obviously much to Pickens' displeasure because he did not look happy for a Pittsburgh side.
Oh, he's not looking. It'll be interesting to see what Pickens shows up this weekend. Let's just say.
I know, definitely. Obviously, you mentioned the fact that he's been rolling against some really good defences, and Liam, I'm going to come to you. Obviously, the Steelers' defence, we know all about them. We know how good they are. Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, Hayward, these kind of guys. They just couldn't seem to get near the Ravens, and Pittsburgh as a whole really seems to have limped into the playoffs. What did you take away from Pittsburgh in this game? Can you, from their perspective, can they just take this and throw it in the bin and it's a whole new game plan? Or is there any positives or anything? Sorry, I'm realising I've jumped from Pittsburgh.
You're merging games together.
I know. Sorry, mate. I'm going to the preview crew. Sorry, the Browns.
No, sorry.
The Browns are absolutely horrendous. As I say, Myles Garrett looked an absolute distraught figure for them as well at times. There was one of the ones I think he thought he had Lamar Jackson dead to rights, and Lamar's just spun off him. From the Browns' perspective, should they? I know Brian and the Freddie Gridiron crew has been saying about just blow it up, start getting your trades in for Myles Garrett, that kind of thing, get away your tradable assets. Should the Browns just blow up and start again, or
he would look great in purple? He would look great in purple.
I'll take him in green, no problem.
I think there's a long list of teams that would take Myles Garrett.
Indeed. I was kind of thinking about that the other day, actually. They've sown so much money into Watson, haven't they? And look how it's gone. Like, you kind of feel they kind of blow up now. Like, is Watson ever going to get back to the form he was in when he was with the Texans ever? How many years is that now? What, 3 years? 4 years now?
Yeah, it's been long.
So, and all the money's tied up there. Like, how? I don't know what the cap picture is looking like for next season, but
apparently is it 46 million for the next 2 seasons with Watson?
Yeah. There's a lot tied up with Watson, and obviously
there's no point renegotiating and pushing it all down the road because you don't want to do a Saints and push it all down and push it because you're just going to end up in absolute cap hell. So yeah, it kind of makes sense to some degree to blow it up a bit, move your big assets, but
it will come interesting to me for the Browns because I really like the defensive units that the Browns have got. They've got some really great players like Denzel Ward as well. But offensively, I mean, Jerry Jeudy is slotted in great for them. So they do have some pieces, but I mean, the Watson thing, there was reports, obviously, there was a setback with his injury and all, and it makes you wonder between now and draft what's got to happen, and then all that, the pressure on the Browns with a high pick. It's like, what could they do, etc. So I think it'll be an interesting off season, and Brian will probably talk more about this in some of the future crew meetups. So let's see how they go. But I mean, it's weird because as an AFC North game at the weekend, I don't know many Ravens fans that were concerned about the slip up, if you like, with the Browns. It just looked more like a formality, which is not normally the case in the AFC North.
No, definitely. I mean, you seem to kind of have your way with them. You were over 200 yards passing, over 200 yards rushing. The Browns just couldn't stop anything, and they couldn't get anything going either.
The only thing I would say is Lamar only had 16 out of 32 for his passes, and on the start line, if you look at stats that way, it looks quite average. But when you watch the tape, loads of the receivers had open drops, and you're like, what's going on? And it was cold. And Hard Knocks, Myles Garrett's complaining about having cold feet. So it must have been absolutely freezing, but it was comfortable. Like, it was just one of these sort of games. The stats kind of show that it was a bit like that, apart from Lamar's completion percentage.
Yeah, no, a wee tip for that on the cold feet. I've learned it for refereeing. Vapor rub on your toes before you put your socks on. What's an absolute treat, by the way.
I used to do that in the games for outside when I was linebacker. I was like vapor rub on the feet, so that was good.
Absolutely, what's an absolute treat. As you said, Mikey, the game itself was pretty in hand very early on. He's ended up running out 35-10 and securing the AFC North for another season. Second time running, yeah. So
it's interesting because the AFC North, if you look back at the winners, nobody wins it 3 years running.
Yeah.
It's like the Bengals had it too, Steelers had it too, we have it too. So let's see if we can go for our own three-peat next year.
See how you go. Right, so we'll move on for that one, guys. I say that one pretty handy kind of blowout on that one. We'll move on to the NFC side of things, and the NFC South was the one division that wasn't tied up. It was coming right down to the wire. The Bucs had took the initiative getting into the final weekend, and they were at home to the Saints. Falcons, obviously, we'll touch on them in a minute, but the Bucs in this one, obviously down early doors. They were down at halftime, 16-6, which I don't think anybody saw coming, to be honest, from New Orleans in particular. Baker Mayfield seemed to have real trouble in the first half of this game. Got it going into the second half, particularly in the fourth quarter. They really seemed to get rolling, and Bucky Irvin again, he's just been an unbelievable find for them. Liam, I'm going to ask you to put yourself in Ross's shoes from the crew. He's obviously a big Bucs fan. How nervous must he have been at halftime, in particular with this one?
I can't even imagine it. Like, as you say, I wasn't predicting that score at halftime. After the Saints, the way Saints have been playing in the latter half of the season, yeah, and the Bucs, especially because the Bucs were at home, like, you just thought Baker and the crew were just going to kind of roll over them, just take an easy win. But yeah, they had to. It turned out that it kind of seemed that way at the very, very end, as you say, but they definitely had to work for it. Definitely had to. Baker definitely had to step up, and, like, talking about other players like McMillan, I think looks coming on top. He seems to be a good find as well. You know, he's kind of replaced. Obviously, you've still got Evans there, but obviously, what's his name now? I've forgotten his name. The wide receiver went down. Oh, it's terrible. Godwin, yeah. Obviously, he went down, so he's kind of stepped up now. I think. Took a wee while, I think, but he certainly seems to got a bit of trust now with Baker and definitely making some plays. So, which can only be helping them into the playoffs, I suppose. But yes, definitely be into the end of the fourth must have been a big sigh of relief to get that win over the line.
No, definitely. You mentioned obviously Jalen McMillan. I think it'd be remiss not to talk about the crazy flag he got when he got a big first down in the third or fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Pointing for a first down, he's got his two fingers out, he's got his thumb up, and they throw the flag on him. Obviously, it's the gun symbol. We know the NFL's been clamping down on it. What did you make of that one, Liam? Was that just a crazy flag and the rules going a bit too far? Or?
Yeah, like as you say, you see players doing it every week. Not maybe like fully looks like a gun, I suppose, but they're putting their hands out, you know, for the next, for the first down and stuff. I think it was a bit tit for tat sort of thing, like a bit over the top. I think, yeah, it was a bit harsh all around. I think whether he meant it or not to be a gun or not, I don't know.
I would say on that though, he was, I think afterwards he came off and you could see he was a bit annoyed at the sideline, and the coaches calmed him down.
Yeah.
And then it was a couple of plays later they threw a touchdown to him. So
yeah,
that's quite a good thing, because there's a lot of receivers out there that kind of let that bother you. Do you know what I mean? But he answered it pretty well.
Yeah, no, it was a great wee bit of bounce back ability from him in that front, as you say. That was one of the things I'd kind of seen on Red Zone. You've seen Todd Bowles grabbing him with the shoulder pads and really kind of calm him down, as you said, Mikey, and totally take that frustration out of him. I did see something quite funny about the fact that let's throw a flag on a guy for doing the first down sign, making it look like a gun when his stadium fires cannons every time they score a touchdown, which was obviously quite amusing. Mikey, from the Bucs side of things, obviously the last few years, the Bucs defense has been up in the top 5, top 10 in the league. Doesn't seem to be as efficient this year on the defensive side of things. I think they're missing Antoine Winfield Jr. They've missed him for a big part of the season. Obviously, they're coming up against the Washington Commanders next, and we know what their offense has been like. Do you think they can get their defensive issues sorted for the playoffs, or do you think it's all going to be on Baker and Mike Evans?
I hate to say this, but no, I don't think they can. I think they're going to need Baker to show what he's been doing this year, and it will become a bit of a shootout with Washington. And in a case, it'll be like who stands up better. I was hot on the Bucs defense this year. I thought they were going to be like, they're a good coach unit and all that, but they have struggled. And I mean, they played us earlier in the season, and it was a shootout. And it was like, and I think they played, was it the Bengals, and they had a shootout with them. It's like they seem to be in that mantra of we'll just score more, we'll score more. And it's been a bit surprising because, as I said, you was expecting them to be pretty good on defense, but I think Washington, the game at the weekend, I'm not being funny, I didn't expect the Saints to score 19 points against them, which generally in the NFL, if you keep a team to under 20 points, you'll win. Obviously they've done their job there, but it was the Saints, and the Saints have not been pretty decent offensively since like week 2, have they? So
yeah, well, that's. I mean, it's a Saints team that's obviously missing Alvin Kamara, Spencer Rattler at the helm, who actually had a fairly decent game, to be honest. 240 yards and 1 touchdown, 26 for 42 again. He's obviously been asked to throw the ball a lot there, but I think some of the throws Spencer Rattler was making, he actually looked to have a decent game. Obviously, again, the wide receivers, we know Chris Olave is just coming back from the concussion. I think it would have been madness to play him this weekend. So I think Saints have done the right thing on that side. But he's thrown to guys like MVS, who I'm more than familiar with in Kansas City, and the drops that he's capable of and the frustrations that he brings. The speed's unreal, but again, the hands aren't elite for MVS, which is why he has bounced about. Liam, obviously, you'll be familiar with him as well, and that aspect of his game. So I think from a Saints perspective, if you're looking at that game, you're looking at Spencer Rattler and thinking he's actually no bad.
Promise.
There's promise there, absolutely, Mikey. And I've seen Derek Carr saying he's not going to take a pay cut, that kind of thing. Could they roll forward, Liam, with Spencer Rattler and Derek Carr again? Or are the Saints similar to the Browns in the sense of, right, we know they're in cap hell. Do they look to see if they can do something in the draft again, or do you think they even stick with Rattler and give this guy a chance next season as a QB1?
I don't know. It's very. I don't know. I think Rattler, he's had his moments, but he's also not had his moments, shall we say? He's a kind of interesting player, but he played well this weekend, and I think it depends what the Saints do. I think on the coaching side of the ball, whether they keep their interim coach or they get someone else in. There hasn't really much chat yet that I've seen actually about the Saints last couple of days. But will that whoever the permanent coach becomes, will he want a new QB? Start a new clean slate sort of thing. But as you say, Carr has already come out and say he's not taking a pay cut. Is he is he in it for the team? All this sort of chat, I'm sure will start. All this sort of thing. But to be fair to Carr, like Carr, like I know he's up and down, but he's quite fun to watch at times. He gets to fling it about, doesn't he? So whether he's ever going to be the player that gets you, QB that gets you to the playoffs and obviously the promised land of a Super Bowl, and I don't think so. But it's going to be tough, as you say, with the cap situation. They just seem to seem to find a way of getting back, under the right conditions. So I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah, it'll be a tough off season for them, as you mentioned. So Derek Carr is more than serviceable. I totally agree with what you're saying. I don't think he's ever going to be that guy to take you to a Super Bowl. I think he had one season in, it would have been Oakland at the time, where he was in kind of MVP conversations and things like that until he picked up an injury towards the end of the season. But I think Rattler could be interesting for them on that front. But again, see what the off-season brings for the Saints. Last one on this game, obviously Mike Evans was sitting there 5-6 yards short of hitting his 1,000-yard season. The Bucks are in control of the game. They've got the ball back. They're leading by 8 points, as was the final score in the end up. They decide to bring Mike Evans out for Baker to throw him a pass, so as he could get that record. Mikey, I'm going to come to you first. Right decision or too risky on that one? Because, I mean, if Baker throws that and it's pick 6, back in the Falcons' hand. You're on mute, Mikey. Right, I'll come to you, Liam, then first, whilst Mikey sorts out his mute issues.
It was cool to see. I think, it was definitely nice of them to get him that, realise that he had just 5 yards to get a play in there that, pretty much guaranteed it. When I was watching, I was like, do the Saints players know that he needs 5 yards or not? Will they just, back off and just let him get his whatever his mounds of pounds that he got, But it seemed like an easy completion, easy run off. It did seem a bit strange when he just ran off the pitch, basically, at the end. There's like, got some congratulations, it disappeared sort of down the touchline, but fair enough. I suppose he's charged up, isn't he? So after getting that amount of money, fair enough. You can do what you want for a bit. So
definitely, and it wasn't a small chump change. It was 3 million, I think, was the bonus he got for that one. Yeah. So obviously joining Jerry Rice in the record books on that one as well. So I think he's just further cemented the fact that he's going to be a Hall of Famer when he actually does decide to retire as well. Yep. It was definitely a risk, obviously, but I think when you see that reaction for your teammates, it kind of makes it worthwhile, obviously. And he's played with these guys all season. They know exactly what it means from a personal standpoint to get the record. I'm sure the win was obviously more important for him, but once that win was in hand, obviously for him to get that record was pretty cool. Right, we will move on then. Again, staying in the AFC South in this one. So we had the Falcons and the Panthers travelling into the Falcons. Falcons hoping to steal the South and basically hoping for the Bucks to kind of somehow lose at home to the Saints. The Falcons end up losing in overtime, so by the time they were in overtime, they knew that they couldn't win the South anyway. But the Carolina Panthers, 44-38. Bryce Young has been on an absolute tear since he's come back from his benching, which I think has been great to see. He's been lighting up for Carolina to the extent where I think there was a few comments where we've got our QB1. Mikey, did you manage to catch much of this game?
Hopefully you can hear me again. Yes. I told you before we came on, my new setup, I wasn't expecting it to go smoothly, so apologies to anybody that's watching. Okay. I seen a bit of it, mainly on the kind of red zone when I was watching it. But what I would say is, I know afterwards there was a lot of comments for Panthers and all that, but Bryce Young looks decent. I'm hoping he doesn't go down the CJ Stroud kind of drop off. I hope he
Yeah.
keeps going. He's got a couple of good options there from him as well, but I like the look of the Panthers. I like them. I mean, I thought this game could have been a good game. I thought it was going to be scoring. It obviously proved out it was. Falcons just seemed to let loose. Drake London was going mad as well, but the Panthers looks, and I mean, you look at the kind of the stats from the game and what it is. I think the Falcons were annoyed they got beat, but the Panthers done well. I liked it. Bryce Young just looks like a good young QB.
Yeah, I think everybody at this point's kind of seen the clip. Obviously, Lamar done it on the Saturday where he had the touchdown where the hand was up in the air before it was caught, and then Bryce Young was obviously watching and decided to go a little bit different. He completely turned round celebrating on that one. Steph Curry.
It's good because I mean Lamar's done that I think like 2 or 3 times this season when he's done a Steph Curry, and like Mahomes obviously has done it through the years as well and everything. And for the QBs to have that faith in the receiver to make sure they catch and just listen to the crowd, what a feeling that must be. Like it must, and I mean the picture of Young like that with that shot. I mean, that's a marketing dream as well, and that's merchandise and everything. They'll just be taking it and selling it everywhere. So
that's it. That'll be in the Carolina Panthers shop, no doubt that picture. Especially because it was in front of away fans for the most part as well. So, it was. As you said, the faith he's got in his receiver there to make sure he doesn't drop that ball is obviously unreal. I think for me, from the Panthers side, what I kind of impressed with, and I didn't realise this until I kind of looked at the sort of box score, was obviously you mentioned Drake London was going off for the Falcons, so he had like 187 yards. And the next one was 66 after that. You look at the Panthers and it's really spread out. There's nobody with no wide receiver one on that front, if you like, where he was far exceeding everybody else. Liam, do you think there's optimism if you're a Panthers fan? Mikey's saying he likes the look of the Panthers, obviously the way they've finished the season strong. I think there's optimism there if you're a Carolina Panthers fan.
I think there only can be from where they've been to the last couple of weeks. It's definitely, and they've been been scoring points. Young's the last couple of weeks have been definitely flinging it about and making exciting games, if nothing else out of it. So yeah, it's from, it's made wonders, having that wee benching, getting his head on straight a wee bit, get confidence back, and like he's looking like a first round pick now, doesn't he? So yeah.
So the good old Scottish term now, a bit up the arse. The team and getting a bit up the arse.
That's it.
What I would say if you're a Falcons fan, right enough, not all doom and gloom, obviously. Michael Penix, small sample size. Was it 3 games, 4 games? He's looked good. He has looked every bit of the quarterback we've seen playing in Washington. Again, his first ever 300-yard game for the Falcons. So Drake London went nuts, as I mentioned. 10 catches for 187. And again, Bijan Robinson kind of shown why he was so highly sought after as well. He had 170 yards. So it was a pretty offensive game. Obviously, the score kind of leads us to see that anyway. Falcons as well, obviously, good start to the season. Indifferent, which led to obviously Kirk Cousins getting benched. And I seen Chris Donicke against popped on saying Cousins will be the Browns QB next year on Instagram. From a Falcons side as well, I suppose, I don't know how you guys feel, but from an offensive side, certainly, I think there's some optimism there. It looks like if Penix can continue in the off-season building that confidence, looks like their number 8 pick for this year's draft, which everybody slated at the time, could end up being an absolute winner for the Falcons. I don't know how you feel about that, Mikey. You first.
Yeah, all I was going to say is he looks, and the stats kind of say this, and whether he keeps it up, he's accurate. He picks the right passes. He's pretty good. Whether it was good with the whole fat drama they've had picking him number 8 and then signing Cousins and all that, it seems like it's just front office madness with the money they've put up for Cousins. But ultimately the end result has been that they've got a small sample size of them, and it gives you hope for going into next year. I mean, CD is probably right on Instagram. I think that ends Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. I think he probably is somewhere else next season. I would err on the side that they might bring somebody else in, so that just Penix isn't thrown in at the deep end. But I mean, if they do put him in from the start, you would hope that they're going to get people around them to help him, because like we've seen, we just said with Bryce Young and some of the other QBs, they all had baptisms of fire in the kind of early season this year, and they've all, like, some of them have came good, some of them are still a bit up in the air, and you wouldn't want that because Penix looks like he's got a decent capability.
No, definitely. Liam, room for optimism at the Falcons?
No, I think I'd agree totally with Mikey there. I think some ways it's a brave move for them to drop Cousins, because they were still in the mix, as you say, right up to the very end for a playoff spot in theory, to make that decision and go with Penix. Okay, as you say, maybe a strange thing to do in the off-season, paying all that money for Cousins, but brave enough for the front office or the GM or whatever to probably make that overriding decision to say, let's just go with Penix and see where we go. So yeah, and they've got, as you say, he's got a good supporting cast there already with London and Robinson, and if Pitts ever eventually shows his overall promise. I think he got injured. To be fair, I think he got injured in this game, to be fair, didn't he not? But yeah.
He was the source of my frustration this year, because he cost me in fantasy in a couple of championship games because he just wasn't there. And I think I said in the crew in one of our chats, I was like, if Pitts ever shows up, and it was like, he's got so much potential as a tight end. I'm like, he could be really good, but like Liam said there, the pieces are kind of there. It's probably the O-line helps so that he doesn't get the Joe Burrow syndrome where he just gets murdered, and build on it. Then I think the Falcons have got decent optimism. But I mean, the other thing I was going to say, obviously, they probably need to spend money on the defense with 537. Was it 537 yards they gave up total? That could just be the week 18 thing. So maybe if that's a week 4 or that's maybe not as much as that. But I would say that the Falcons, and weirdly the Falcons, I think Stu on the crew as well, me and him were talking about it early in the season. I actually think the Falcons have got some good pieces in defense, so I think they're not far away from it. They've had a couple of games where they've shown up, but obviously the weekend was just a kind of shootout. But I think they've got promise, and they play in a division that probably helps them, that they could still be in the mix, like we said earlier.
I think it's going to be an interesting AFC North next year, especially if what we've seen for these two young QBs at the weekend. If they can continue that next year, then you're looking at, obviously, Bucks. Baker has shown what he's capable of this year, and no reason to suggest that wouldn't continue. The Saints are the ones that are the complete unknown, if you like, in that division next year. But obviously Carolina and Atlanta have certainly shown there's some good pieces there. If they can put runs together next year, it could make it a tasty NFC South, next season. Right, so final game of the weekend was Sunday Night Football. It was the one everybody was looking forward to. It was the number one seed in the NFC was at stake. It was the NFC North was at stake. We had the Minnesota Vikings travelling into the Detroit Lions. Unfortunately, only one team seemed to show up in this one. Minnesota Vikings ended up getting absolutely hosed 31-9. And again, that's leading to the confidence of Alex Miller on Instagram, who's telling us that the Lions are going to take it all. So he's got his Super Bowl prediction in nice and early. I don't know how much you guys seen of this game. I managed this at the first half, I think, and then it wasn't much of a game, to be honest. Detroit were 10-6 up at this point. I do remember before going to bed, I seen one questionable refereeing call, shall we say, where I felt it was grounded in the end zone by Jared Goff. which could have potentially given Minnesota a spark. Obviously, you get the safety, you're getting the ball back, but the Lions just absolutely went nuts. In particular, Jahmyr Gibbs, 4 touchdowns in this game. He was just unbelievable. Some flashes again for Jameson Winston, as we've seen all season. Sam Darnold was overthrown JJ a few times in the end zone. He threw them too high. Jefferson couldn't really get going. Liam, obviously, 2 teams you're very familiar with. What did you make of? Obviously, there was all this hype around the game, and it just seemed to fall very flat.
Yeah, I think, well, compared to the Lions, I think they've just been doing what they've done most of the season, haven't they? They've just kind of steamrolled most teams. Unfortunately, I've seen it firsthand. But yeah, when I was like looking at the stats, like I know Vikings were trying to catch up, but Darnold's thrown 41 times, only like 18 completions. Darnold's been good. To be fair to Darnold, he's been good all season, really. He's been pretty consistent. You know, he's been hitting his players when he needed to, for the most part. It was just, I don't know, it's a bit ominous, I think, for the Vikings that going to the playoffs, that they were kind of, if they're going to get to the Super Bowl, they're going to have to probably go through the Lions realistically. So is another away game, they are going to be too much for them. I don't know, but then again, an off night, maybe I say Jefferson didn't really get going either. He still did all right but not to Jefferson standards, not very good, I suppose, but they still got some playmakers there, obviously. But yeah, the Lions are looking, with all, as everyone's saying all season, all their injuries, they seem to just roll on, next man up, keep going. Doesn't seem to matter. But yeah, it's going to be a tough task for anyone in the NFC, I think, to take down the Lions.
The thing with the Lions, right? The Lions remind me so much of the 2019 Ravens when they were steamroller and they were awesome towards the end. At some point, the injuries will catch up. The Ravens that 2019, Andrews, Mark Ingram, and even Lamar, they all went down, and the playoffs were too far. So I have that in the back of my mind. That's a concern with the Lions. The other thing is they're absolutely just mental. They just go for it. Now, part of me with the game the other night, I was the same as you. I kind of watched it up till half time-ish, and then when it started looking like it was going away from them, I got the impression that Minnesota kind of dialed back slightly and were like, right, okay, we've lost this, and held back, whereas the Lions, like I think Dan Campbell said the other week, they've just got to put everything out on tape, do you know what I mean? And we're better than you type thing, which is working, but I wouldn't be surprised if further down the line it's like we've seen more of the Lions, and maybe whether that hinders them because other teams haven't showed as much, and I don't know. I really like the Lions. I've got a little soft spot for them because I like what they do, and they just seem to be that sort of team, and the players are all likable, if you like. So I think playoffs will be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah. No, there's a lot to be said, obviously, about putting more on tape for other teams to kind of get more research done on you, as you mentioned there, Mikey. And I think one of the kind of obviously the better news in the injury front was the fact they had Alex Anzalone back. He's been a big piece for them this season. It was good to see him back on the field for them. Probably would be remiss not to mention Amick Robertson, who a lot of the time, certainly in the first half that I seen, was left on an island with Justin Jefferson. He seemed to be the one that was kind of trying to lock him down. Like you mentioned, the stats for Justin Jefferson, 50 odd yards. He done a great job. And fair play to him. Nobody had ever heard of this guy, I think, before Sunday Night Football. So
all I was going to say, that their back line, like Kirby Joseph and kind of Brian Barnes, and they all just seem to be stepping up, and you love to see it when they're all playing for each other. And like that, like you said, sometimes a player will get put on a star like that, and they'll just be targeted and everything. And to keep Justin Jefferson at that, like, under 60 yards, most teams would say if you keep him under that, there you got to win. So it's impressive to see that with the amount of IR players that they've got, that they're still they're keeping going, and everybody loves a kind of fairy tale story, don't they? And the Lions definitely give you that vibe. So yeah.
I think the Lions are kind of. I think everybody's kind of got a soft spot for them. I always kind of had a soft spot for them. I was a big Ndamukong Suh fan, so I have had a soft spot for them for a good few years now. I loved him at Nebraska when he played in college. So they are that kind of fairy tale team. Hopefully, I wouldn't mind seeing the fairy tale go all the way to the Super Bowl as long as it's against the Chiefs and they lose. I'd be quite happy with that. But we'll see how far it goes, obviously. I know Alex will be happy with me saying that, but we'll see what happens. And again, there might be something to be said there, Mikey, as well, about Minnesota dialing it back a little bit and being a bit more vanilla. Obviously, kind of get into the playoffs, you don't want to show your hand too much. So it'll be interesting to see how Minnesota goes this weekend. Obviously, they're going to the Rams on Monday. I think they're the Monday night game.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, can they bounce back for this, because it is a heavy loss. But again, I could think of worse teams to be facing than the Rams at SoFi Stadium. So we'll see how they go. Right, so that's kind of week 18 sort of wrapped up in a nutshell. So for the last kind of 10 minutes or so, obviously everybody references the day after the end of the regular season as Black Monday in the NFL. It's when everybody gets a sack and we start seeing all these requests for interviews. And I know we've touched on the timings, and we're obviously not massive fans of the timings. So sackings right off the bat, you got Gerard Mayo get the sack in New England. Doug Peterson soon followed as well. The Browns have had a couple of coordinators in Dorsey Dickerson. Obviously, the Bears, Saints, and Jets, they'd already cleared their head coach out of the building as well. I'm trying. Lou Anarumo at the Bengals leaving as well. He was a big name a couple of years ago when the Bengals defense was firing. Ryan Grubb's out after a season at the Seahawks. I'm trying to think. Antonio Pierce obviously got the sack yesterday as well. What about any of the firings surprise any of you guys at all? Just before we kind of talk about who's kind of going for interviews, anybody you were shocked at seeing or who they expected? What do you think?
It's not a sacking for me, and sorry to jump in, Liam, but I'm going to steal it in case any of you do. How in the heck do the Jags keep Trent Baalke? Of all the firings and everything, he was on my bingo card that he would be up there, and not even just keep. He's returning for the fifth, and like I'm like, oh man, he's. When you see the reports and people are saying that the head coaches wouldn't want to work with him and all that, it's like I was surprised. Well, surprised he stayed. I wasn't surprised. Obviously, Doug Peterson ended up going, but there's just some of the people that were kept or they announced they were keeping. You're like, I mean, the Giants then obviously doubled down on Brian Daboll and their GM and stuff after obviously what happened this year. But I was weirdly this season I've thought on the firing that normally I think everybody kind of waited, but we've seen a lot more firings quite like that all season, haven't they? They've just reacted, obviously with the Saints and stuff. So I was surprised that the Patriots just done a one and done for Mayo. I kind of thought they showed a wee bit and they would have let him bed in, but turns out they've obviously got an idea. And then the kind of after what happened with the Raiders, I was a wee bit surprised that the Raiders moved on and basically cleaned decks there, didn't they? But I do think some of the teams are reactive and have went, oh wait, they're getting interviews for him. He might go to them, so they jump because they want to maybe jump in and get. And it's like, yeah, it'll be interesting to see once a couple of weeks pass with the other games going, what happens with coordinators and head coaches, etc., and see where they go.
Nah, no, definitely. Liam, any of the firing surprise you?
Yeah, well, again, like Mikey, maybe not surprising, but I suppose the male one for Pats, I thought, as you say, he was keen to be handpicked, as it were, last off season.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. He was the next man up. He's going to drive us back to the glory land. And he don't give. Okay, I've not watched much Pat football, but he's not a good record, but you didn't give him any time at all. It seemed a wee bit odd that suddenly he's no longer in fashion anymore, as it were. And like Mickey says, is it a bit of reacting? You've heard rumours of Rebo interviewing with the Jets and stuff like that. That's an easy connection to make for the Pats as well. So yeah, it seemed a wee bit odd, but yeah.
One to watch though, Studs, is the fact that the Titans fired their GM.
Yeah.
And they're going into this off season with a number 1 pick.
Yeah.
So that's for me a kind of a one to watch, because I'm like, right, well, who are they going to take? Because a new GM will have an idea where he wants to go, and having that pick, I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans then start to look at what that value for that pick is for elsewhere, because obviously a lot of GMs want as many picks as they can, but there's obviously a couple of players that have got a peak interest that the Titans might be interested in.
Yeah, no, well, on that side of it then, so I've kind of got a list of who's been requested for interviews. So the Titans on the general manager front have apparently requested interviews with Ed Dodds for the Colts, his assistant GM, Terence Gray for the Bills, and John Spytek for the Bucks, again, assistant GM. So they've already got the requests in on that front. I'd be lying if I said I'd never heard of these guys before. If you have, you know far more than me. But yeah, so they're getting the requests in early. Just to touch on that side of it then, so obviously we mentioned we've got Bears, Jags, Raiders, Patriots, Saints, Jets, all looking for new head coaches. So I'll stay on that side of it. I'm not going to start getting into the coordinator side, who's hiring new coordinators and stuff. So Bears have got a long list of head coaching interviews requested. So they've got Brian Flores, Pete Carroll, Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson, Mike Kafka, Mike McCarthy, which has subsequently been denied by the Cowboys, Todd Monken, Drew Petzing, David Shaw from Stanford, former Stanford head coach, Arthur Smith, Mike Vrabel, and Anthony Weaver on the Bears side. So just briefly, or just quickly, guys, we'll fire through this quite quick. If you're a Bears fan, Liam, start with you, any of those names jump out that you think could be a good fit with the Bears?
I think the obvious one I think a lot of Bears fans are hoping for maybe is Ben Johnson. What he's doing the Lions, there seem to be some rumours of connections there already and things like that. So, but then I suppose it's old caveat of stepping up from OC to head coach. Can you make that jump? Okay, obviously loads of people have done it and it's worked out, I suppose, with that. Or do you go for a person who's already been in a head coaching role? I suppose that's the ultimate question probably for them.
No, definitely. Mikey, Bears, good fit there. Any names jump out?
The only thing that I would maybe look at is Arthur Smith from the Steelers. And he's been a head coach before. He's kind of been at the Steelers and what they've done, and offensively it might prick the ears for him, do you know what I mean, to go and do that challenge. But like Liam says, I think the Bears fans might be hoping Ben Johnson picks this. I probably could see them maybe making that play. And I know you're not touching on coordinators, but I hope they don't steal our Todd Monken.
Well, I did mention Monken. I'm just meaning I'm not touching coordinators in terms of who's hiring. So he is in there, Todd Monken.
So, and with his locale and all that being close to Chicago and stuff, I mean, if he was to go, it'd be gutting for me and as most Ravens fans, but it's just like the players in it. It's like you adapt to a new coach and you move on from it. So, but the Bears is probably one of the ones that looks promising, because obviously there's quite a wee little glimpse of there's potential there, and it's in a division that's fairly competitive. Do you know what I mean? It's not one of the vanilla divisions. It's one where you can have pretty highlighted games every season. So, and they're on a win streak just now against the Packers, aren't they? So,
I must admit, when I heard Pete Carroll's name, that kind of pricked my ears up a wee bit for a Bears side. I think he could maybe be quite a decent fit in there. And then Brian Flores, another one. I think he'd be a good fit. So Bears have got a history of having that, pretty similar to the Steelers and the Ravens. They've always been known for having quite a kind of hard-nosed defence. I think Brian Flores bringing that aspect into the Bears could be a really good fit. Right, so moving on to the Jaguars then. So Jaguars have requested for Joe Brady, Liam Cohen, Aaron Glenn, again, some previously mentioned names. Patrick Graham for the Raiders, Ben Johnson again, Todd Monken, Kellen Moore and Robert Saleh. Obviously we mentioned about the Trent Baalke debacle and staying on, and Shad Khan sitting on a Zoom call with him, even saying, well, if my head coach can give me a good reason to fire him, I will, basically. Start with you, Mikey. Anybody on there you think would be a good fit with the Jags?
I think you've got, for me, I look at the Jags and I look at their young, Brian Thomas Jr. and stuff like that. I think Kellen Moore might do all right, might be a nice step up. Dipping into that Eagles tree that the Jags have kind of looked at before. I probably think it's more of an offensive mind that they're going to look for. But again, I think they're scheduled to meet with Saleh, aren't they? Robert Saleh. I think Robert Saleh is a great coach. The only thing for me in that would be whether he would be concerned with the whole front office and all that sort of thing. And because of the whole front office thing, I think that's where you might get a coach that's maybe in a lower position just now who wants to jump up, because it's a good place to get in, as opposed to somebody who's been in that role and wouldn't take as much nonsense, if you like, or has been a bit more determined. So I think it might end up being an OC from somewhere else that then goes, actually, I'm going to take my... I think I heard a couple of seasons ago, somebody said there's only 32 head coaching jobs in the league, and they're hard to come by.
Yeah.
And you don't often pass up on the opportunity to take one, regardless of where it is, kind of thing. So, yeah, Jacksonville's one of them that I think there's a little bit of potential there and it could appeal to somebody.
What about you, Liam? I was conscious I was going to jump in there, but then I thought I'll wait and see just in case I steal your answer. So, what about you, Jags? Anybody for there think jumps out at you?
I was thinking maybe like Liam Cohen from the Bucks. As I say,
I'm glad I never jumped in there.
Oh, good. That's it. But a bit like Mikey was saying, like I maybe like not like Salah, not being a head coach yet. Stepping up, having that opportunity. Okay, Lawrence is a few years removed from is high. Is going to be the next second coming of everything sort of thing. But it's still, I'm sure a lot of coaches will want to work with him to try and get his potential, get that potential met, sort of thing. So it's definitely a kind of job that's going to, attract some attention, sort of thing.
No, definitely. Liam Cohen was the first name that kind of jumped out at me for the Jags as well, just with the job he's done with Baker. Obviously, they're needing somebody like that to come in for Trevor Lawrence and see if they can kind of get the best out of him. So, right, Raiders, they've got a pretty short list just now, although I did hear today that apparently Tom Brady's reached out to Bill Belichick on that one. So that could be a sneaky one to watch.
I think he's skywashed it already and said he's staying. He's made the statement. His girlfriend's obviously told him that she wants to play with her pals and not to go out of college. So
she wants to finish up her final years at college.
Yeah.
Their list's pretty small just now. So we've got Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, obviously, who we've previously mentioned, and we've got Steve Spagnuolo for the Chiefs. I'll start on this one. Obviously, Spagnuolo, for me, I'm surprised he's not been touted with more jobs, given the job that he's done with the Chiefs defence over the years. Very similar to what you said with Mikey, with Monken. I do not want Spagnuolo to go anywhere. I want him to stay with the Chiefs. He has got that culture right in the defensive side for the Chiefs. But I think he would probably be a good fit with the Raiders, if I'm honest. What about you? Again, Liam, just any of those three jump out at you?
I suppose I was thinking about Aaron Glenn on the defensive side as well. Like, it seems to be a fit to get people to toe the line sort of thing, and get them stop going to get distracted by the bright lights of Vegas sort of thing, and get them ship shape again sort of thing. So yeah, I could see that being maybe a fit there.
What about you, Mikey?
I'm going to be the proverbial spanner in the works here, and give a little bit of credit to Chris, who was messaging on Instagram as well earlier. If the Ravens beat the Steelers this weekend, do the Raiders make a play for Mike Tomlin in Vegas? Is my kind of thing. Now, there was rumours last year when Tomlin was on about him going to the Raiders. I wouldn't. They're in a position just now. Do you know what I mean? Now, that's a big if. But I mean, if the Steelers don't win this weekend, their playoff records for Tomlin for the last 8 years has been very ropey.
Yeah,
I think the Steelers would be mental. Let's just put it out there. Tomlin's fantastic, right? I love the battles that we have with him. But yeah, you never know. Tom Brady could have used his influence and get the likes of somebody like that. I think the Raiders will be somebody that's not even in any of these lists, because obviously it's the big bright lights, and they'll try and match that. But I'm not sure about Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson. I don't think Spagnuolo. I don't think that's a thing. But I mean, they've got promise. They've got decent nares. I mean, but it's somebody that's going to have to go in and deal with a QB situation. There's got to be a lot of free QBs. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Cousins ends up in Vegas as a little kind of thing next year. So, they've a short list obviously just now, but I think in the next week or so we'll see how big that grows.
Well, one of the rumours I had, obviously there was discussions. They were talking about maybe Deion Sanders, if they can move up to get Shador, can they prize him away for Colorado as well and get him to Vegas, which I think it'd be great for the NFL if you got Deion Sanders in as a head coach. I think it'd be unreal. But I can't see them getting up. What are they, 6th? I think I seen in the draft list. You're probably talking you need to get up to 1 or 2 probably to get Shador, because the other one's going to be Cam Ward, I think, for the QB side. But see what happens in the next few weeks. Again, we kind of alluded to the New England Patriots, and with Mikey, you mentioned you think they're obviously looking at a different plan. So they've got interviews completed actually with Pep Hamilton, Byron Leftwich, and Mike Vrabel, and they're looking to have an interview with Ben Johnson as well. What one of them is going to be the New England head coach, and why is it going to be Mike Vrabel, do we think?
It just seems to be written that way, doesn't it? I said earlier in the season on one of the Vrabel going to the Browns and that, I was like, it was a complete kind of stopgap, and to be fair, didn't think it would happen like it is. It just looks like that's what it is. It's written. The Patriots could do worse with Mike Vrabel. I slightly worry though, because I'm like, is he the right fit? I'm not a Pats fan, so I'm never even considered that. Do you know what I mean? So they would say better, but it might work. It might, but it does look like Vrabel's the man that Mr. Kraft has lined up for and is looking to move on to.
Do you think, Liam, that's Mike Vrabel's job, basically? That's what we're going to see him?
I suppose it's the way it's looking, isn't it? I think I have to agree with Mikey totally. Like, as we kind of alluded to earlier, to jump from Mayo when he was meant to be the next man up, and then it just seems to be, the connection just seems to be there, doesn't it? And Vrabel, he's going to be sought after. I'm sure he's going to. If he doesn't go to the Pats, he'll get something. I think this off season, I think, a role. So yeah, I think it'd be hard for the Pats to let him slide away to someone else, I think.
Yeah, well, speaking of letting him slide away, he's already completed an interview with the Jets, which some people were suggesting he kind of used the Jets to kind of get the Patriots interested, which not an unheard of move, certainly as us as soccer fans, if you like. We know people kind of do that here, and so he's had an interview with the Jets, as has former coach Rex Ryan. They've got one scheduled with Aaron Glenn and Mike Nagy. They've also apparently requested Joe Brady, Brian Flores, Vance Joseph, Riverboat Ron has actually been completed as well, sorry. Darren Rizzi for the Saints. He's a current interim head coach. Bobby Slowick, again, Arthur Smith's name popped up, and Steve Spagnuolo's, that's the other one he's kind of popped up for. Again, just quickly on those ones, guys, Liam, anybody jump out at you on that one that would maybe be a good fit?
I suppose maybe some obvious one would be Flores. Would he go there? They seem to have good players on the defense. They just don't seem to ever quite lived up to the expectations. And he seems like a guy who wouldn't. If Rodgers comes back, there's always chat this on the weekend there that that's his last game, and he'll make a quick decision. But we've heard that before. So yeah, he doesn't seem like a guy who would take too much, flack from a QB. I suppose there's a wee bit of history there when he was with Miami with Tua not getting on too well with them. So yeah, I can see Flores maybe being an option possibly for them.
How about you, Mikey? Jets? Anybody?
I actually think that Arthur Smith would be a good fit for them. I do. Like I mentioned that in one of the previous ones, but I actually think Arthur Smith. It's mental that the Jets are so loaded with talent and how they've played and what they've done. And obviously it's spearheaded by Rodgers at the QB, but it's whether he comes back, etc. But regardless of whether he comes back, you look at the wide receivers they've got, you look at like their defense, what they've got, player retention's got to be their thing. So there's bones there for like out better than some of the teams. You know what I mean? You've got actual caliber players there that are extremely good. So I think maybe a kind of Arthur Smith, but weirdly, and it's like I don't think I've seen Ben Johnson's name on the Jets, which I'm like, don't think I did see them.
No, he's not on that list.
But I think it'll be a Smith or Bobby Slowick might be a bit about outside there from the Texans as well. Down season with the Texans really obviously hampered with the wide receiver injuries, but yeah, they've got options there. Do you know what I mean? The Jets on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, they're certainly casting their net pretty wide. And I know Rex Ryan's been quite vocal about the fact that it's his job essentially if he kind of goes for it. So it's interesting to see if he manages to get himself back in the door in New York. The last kind of head coaching vacancy, again, they've got a pretty short list just now, but that could change, is the Saints. So they've got interviews scheduled with Aaron Glenn and Mike Kafka, the Giants OC. You've got Kellen Moore popping up again, David Shaw, former head coach at Stanford, current Broncos exec, and Anthony Weaver, the Dolphins DC. Again, the names on there, from my perspective, obviously, Glenn, Kafka, Moore are the ones that I know of. Again, I could see this being Aaron Glenn's probably the one that kind of jumps out at me on that one. I think he could be an interesting fit there. Again, their defence hasn't really been a massive issue for them, so there's definitely something to work with in the defensive side of things, and can they get the right people round about them to get the offence humming? I don't know about you guys. Mikey, Saints, anybody there you think could be a decent fit for them?
I don't see Weaver from the Dolphins going. I don't see that being a shift that he goes. Glenn, maybe, yeah. But again, it depends. I think that list will grow in the next week or so. I definitely think it'll grow. What I would say is, after the take we mentioned earlier about Spencer Rattler and all that and stuff, Alvin Kamara, they've still got some good pieces there and the Saints. So I think that list that's there just now, I'm not sure any of them stand out for me as a New Orleans Saints. We'll probably get people shouting saying, "What about this guy?" But yeah, I'm not. None of them kind of stick out to me as like they're the new Saints head coach.
Liam,
The main point on that, sorry, is the fact that they've had that opening for a while.
Yeah.
And generally teams have an idea of where they're going, and obviously it's only week 18, so teams have just finished up. So it's kind of the first part that they've got. You look at some of the other guys who've already got everything lined up. They just seem to be slow, which to me tends to mean that they're waiting on somebody else.
Yeah, no, that's probably not a bad shit. I find it interesting that one of the other teams that's got a vacancy is looking to speak to their interim head coach, but he's not mentioned on the Saints' own list. Liam,
that was my thought exactly. I thought, why is the interim coach not on there to be scheduled somewhere along the line? It seems a bit. You can always see that to some degree, don't you? Even if it's just just to be too nice as give you a handshake to walk out the door sort of thing. But yeah, I think I kind of agree with Mikey, but there's no one on the list so far that totally
blows you away.
Yeah, from a Saints fan. Maybe Kellen Moore might be interested. He's been always touted every so often for a head coaching job. I know he's had a bit up and down the last couple of years as OC, but maybe he could do something with the talent that's there. But yeah, I think there's probably definitely more people to get added to that, I think, list indeed.
Yeah, no, I think we'll certainly see those lists change over the coming days and weeks, no doubt. And again, with teams like the Jets, also we mentioned they're looking for a GM as well. That's sensible thing to do would be for that to kind of go hand in hand with the head coach search. You want to have somebody in that can work with that GM, so that'll undoubtedly mean that Aaron Rodgers will pick who he wants as a general manager, and then they'll get a head coach to follow suit. But all joking aside, we'll see what happens. It'll be an interesting few weeks anyway. That kind of brings us to a close, guys. Went a wee bit over, but yeah. So just last things, obviously, thanks to everybody watching and joining in on Instagram and watching along live. Obviously, give us a like, share, subscribe on the usual social media platforms. And thanks very much for listening. And thanks very much to you guys for joining us. So, Mikey, thanks very much. Pleasure being on with you, mate.
Yep. I've just been a good 18 weeks. The long-lived debate of who's better, the NFC or AFC, goes on. I know my favourite. And yeah, I appreciate coming back on. As I said at the start, it's been a while. I'll get criticism because the reason you probably went over is because I'm on again. So appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. Sorry, Roscoe has messaged on YouTube, which I did actually miss. So he's mentioned about Mike Kafka for the potential Saints HT, which is one of the names we said there. And they did also add in that the Saints is put as the most unattractive head coaching job in the league. Quarterback problem, aging team, and worst cap space. So I think he's kind of answered a lot of his own questions there.
So who's taking it?
That's exactly it. You need somebody to work absolute miracles from the sides of it. So, no, Liam, listen, thanks very much for joining us and chatting through the last week of the regular season. And
I know it's always a pleasure, but yes, it's sad times. No more red zone for how many weeks it is now. The countdown begins again. So yeah.
The new countdown until we see Scott Hansen for 7-8 hours every Sunday. Indeed. till we meet again. But yeah, no, thanks very much, guys. And again, thanks everyone for listening. And the review crew will be back later in the week to talk through this weekend's wildcard games. And we will catch you then. Thanks very much.